For our first lesson in philosophy, we're first considering things that we have been wondering as human beings. So, someone might wonder, what am I? What is consciousness? Could I survive my death? Am I a puppet of destiny, or do I have my own free will? Does the world presuppose a creator? How do I know if my opinions are objective? So, what is philosophy? The term philosophy is a compound from the Greek word philo, meaning love, and sophia, meaning wisdom, or love of wisdom. It is best defined as the love of exercising one's curiosity and intelligence. Pythagoras was the first to call himself a philosopher. Three classes of people at the games: athletes, skilled seekers of fame; merchants, shrewd seekers of wealth; and spectators, contemplative seekers of truth. For Pythagoras, rational reflection on abstract mathematical concepts purifies the soul by freeing it from attachment to bodily desires. Philosophy has four main areas of study. The first is metaphysics. It examines the nature of reality. What is real? Does God exist? What is the self? Are we free? The second area is logic. It examines reasoning and how we make reliable inferences. Epistemology is the third main area, and it examines the concept of knowledge. What can we know, and how do we know what we know? And then finally, we have ethics, which examines the concept of right versus wrong. So, why study philosophy? So, firstly, for fun, to satisfy our natural curiosity as human beings and to seek better answers to the existential questions, to enjoy the pleasures of philosophical reflection. The second reason to study philosophy is for self improvement. Reflection improves practice, meaning the more we think and reflect on things, the better we can practice them. Thinking is the third reason to study philosophy, and thinking about what you are doing, why you are doing it, and how you could do it differently make you better at what you do. Theory affects practice. So bad theories lead to bad practices. So when we're thinking about things like karma, heaven, egoism, samsara, all of these things are sort of based on the idea that good practices and good theories lead to good practices. Personal freedom. Only by subjecting the values and beliefs of our culture to critical scrutiny can we avoid being duped by persuasive propagandists who have an interest in manipulating us. To be truly autonomous and self determined, we must learn to think critically, to question what we hear, and to ask for evidence. Also, for a better society, true democracy requires citizens who can contemplate the common good without being duped by groups with a religious or political agenda. Only careful, critical thinkers can evaluate social policy and proposals from an objective and impartial perspective. Let us discuss Plato's conception of philosophy. Philosophical wisdom stands up to critical scrutiny, a clear, articulate, rational system of ideas, dialectical method, critical analysis of traditional beliefs, rational search for unchanging reality. To know a thing's reality, is to know the end or the purpose it serves. To know human nature is to grasp the ideal that human nature strives to realize. Discovering this ideal shows one how to live a life of fulfillment. More recent philosophers on philosophy believe that department of knowledge which deals with ultimate reality or the most general causes and principles of things. That's from the Oxford Dictionary. All those enquiries which have for their object to trace the various branches of human knowledge to the first principles in the constitution of our nature. And that's D. Stewart. The scientific knowledge of man, a collective name for questions which have not been answered to the satisfaction that we have asked them. William James. The attempt to arrive at a general description of the whole universe. G. E. Moore. Every philosophical problem is found not to be really philosophical at all, or else to be logical, arising out of the analysis of propositions. Bertrand Russell. And then we have a critical discussion of critical discussion. John Passmore. Origins of philosophy. A paradigm shift in ancient Greece from supernatural to natural explanations of the universe. Supernaturalists rely on divination and inspiration to discover divine motives. What is Zeus thinking, and how can we influence him? Claims are supported by intuition, shared subjective experience, and appeals to authoritative traditions. Naturalists rely on evidence and reasoning. Claims that are open. Sorry, 1 second here. I can't see past this. Claims that are open to criticism and investigation on the basis. Just a moment. Pre-Socratic philosophy, the Milesians. Thales, in 580 BCE, water as the ultimate cause for all things. All things are filled with gods. One thing that is the cause of everything. This thing contains a principle of change, the ultimate material that explains change while remaining itself unchanged. Anaximander, which was 1610, around 546 BCE, from what source things arise to that they return to of necessity when they are destroyed. For they suffer punishment and make reparation to one another for injustice according to the order of time. The boundless or the limitless, an unspecific, infinite blob from which earth, air, fire, and water emerged. Anaximenes, the boundless is too obscure. A thing with no characteristics would be nothing. The ultimate substance is air. Qualitative change results from changes in the density of air, from quantitative change. When air is dilated into a rarer form, it becomes fire, while air that is condensed forms wines. If this process goes further, it gives water, still further earth, and the greatest condensation of all is found in stones. Heraclitus versus Parmenides. Heraclitus, this world was ever, is now, and ever shall be, an everlasting fire. Fire is a process, always changing, yet somehow remaining the same. When one cannot step into the same river twice. What appears permanent is really in flux. War is king. Endless cycles of creation and destruction. And then we have Parmenides. The concept of change is contradictory. The appearance of change must be an illusion. What is, what is not, is not. So there is no nothing. What is uncreated, indestructible, eternal, and unchangeable. All these things will be but a name which mortals believe to be true, viz., that things arise and perish, that they are and they are not, that they change their position and vary in color. Parmenides and Zeno. Creation. So A out of nothing or B out of something. A is impossible because there is no nothing, and B is impossible since what is, it cannot be something else. Destruction, impossible, would be a disappearance into nothing. Change is impossible. Change is just transformation into something else, to become what it is not. Then we have Zeno's paradoxes. Achilles can never catch the tortoise. Before any distance can be traversed, half the distance must be traversed. These half distances are infinite in number. It is impossible to traverse distances infinite in number, and therefore motion is impossible. Atomism. Empedocles, eternal, uncreated roots of earth, air, fire, and water are mixed together and separated by the forces of love and strife. A crude version of natural selection. Many heads grew up without necks, and arms were wandering about naked, bereft of shoulders, and eyes roamed about alone with no foreheads. Democritus. The universe consists of atoms and empty space. Everything else is merely thought to exist. The atoms are unlimited in size and number, and they are borne along the whole universe in a vortex, and thereby generate all composite things, fire, water, air, and earth. For even these are conglomerations of given atoms. All things happen by virtue of necessity, the vortex being the cause of creation and of all things. Each atom is a Parmenidean one. So you can see how sort of the idea of atomism is sort of growing and changing over time. In the beginning, it's sort of a really crude idea of how life is created and put together, and it sort of is moving towards what we understand now as atoms and the basis of life. The sophists. As belief in the old religious myths waned, a new class of merchants arose. A group of philosophers emerged, teaching oratory skill and debate. For a fee, one could learn to win friends and influence people. These enlightened men, who were liberated from superstition and ignorance, would teach their customers how to acquire wealth, fame, and honor. Man is the measure of all things. Protagoras. When Zeus is uncrowned, chaos succeeds to his place and chaos rules. And that was Aristophanes. So basically, this idea is that there were people in the time of the sophists who basically learned how to debate and learn how to speak to others, and then they would charge money to teach other people how to do that. It's sort of like the idea of creating a hierarchy. People who wanted to acquire wealth, fame, and honor, people who wanted power to be in charge, to be able to influence others.